He just destroyed everything we thought we knew about the FBI. The truth is, they've been hiding it, from the Epstein case to their handling of white supremacy. What's being concealed? The scandal runs deeper than we can imagine. Stay tuned, because this revelation will shatter everything.
The news just came just as you would expect, in a post on Truth Social. This is a very long Truth Social post. And halfway down a long rambling screed, basically about Democrats, Donald Trump announced tonight that he has signed the bill to release the Epstein files into law. And as much as Trump wants to make it seem like this was his secret three-dimensional chess plan all along, the fact of the matter is, this is a failure for him. Trump completely failed at his repeated attempts to make this story go away. By a million times he tried to make it go away. He fought this so hard and for so long. And tonight he did something that he really did not want to do. And to really understand how we arrived at this moment, to really understand the corner he has backed himself into, I just want to go back for a moment to where this all started. Because it was less than 5 weeks into Trump's second term when Trump's newly appointed Attorney General, Pam Bondi, went on Fox News and said this.
One of the things that you alluded to, and this is something Donald Trump has talked about, the DOJ may be releasing the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients. Will that really happen?
It's sitting on my desk right now to review.
I mean, that was February 21st. And Pam Bondi, without any prompting from Democrats or Epstein survivors, it seemed, told the world that she had the list of Jeffrey Epstein's clients, that it was sitting on her desk. And those comments got MAGA pretty excited. I mean, after all, they had made the releasing of the Epstein files a core demand of their entire movement. And now Pam Bondi was saying, I've got them. Get ready, everyone. I'm going to release them. I'm reviewing them on my desk. Now, here's where it gets hairy for the Attorney General. Because within a week of that surprise announcement, Pam Bondi was scrambling to release something, anything that she could call the Epstein files. And that was how we got to this magical moment. Pam Bondi gathering a bunch of MAGA internet celebrities in Washington and handing them big old binders labeled Epstein files, phase 1. And once again, the MAGA movement let themselves get super, super excited. I mean, finally, they were going to see what was in the Epstein files. It was all in the big binders. It all seemed so official. That wasn't until they actually opened those binders.
The Attorney General, you recall last night, called it breaking news. She promised that we would get the Epstein files today, and while that turned out technically to be true, what we've seen so far, critics have argued tonight, really hasn't lived up to the dramatic billing. Now, we began the day with somewhat high expectation, having seen some influencers with so-called Epstein file folders. But that began to fizzle just a bit because we really didn't get a lot of new information.
Ouch. And it wasn't just Fox News who was caught off guard by the announcement. I mean, ABC News reported at the time, quote, Bondi and her team did not inform White House officials in advance that she planned to distribute the binders. And the move ruffled feathers among those closest to President Donald Trump. Why? Well, probably because she made a huge thing out of something they did not want to be a huge thing. And so Pam Bondi tried to just put the whole thing to bed. She released a 2-page memo declaring that despite her own public pronouncement, there was no client list, there was no one else to charge in relation to Epstein's crimes, and that no further disclosure of any Epstein files was warranted. All of which she was trying to end this. But all of that stoked more outrage from Trump's base and from everyone who wanted these files released. And it just increased the spotlight on the calls to release the files. It helped prompt the investigation spurred by House Democrats. The public campaign by Epstein survivors got a lot more warranted attention. The bipartisan discharge petition happened. Trump scrambled then to try and stop that, all of which culminated in last night's overwhelming vote to order these files released. And now, after suffering that massive defeat, Trump's last line of defense on this issue seems to now be once again Pam Bondi. I mean, according to the bill that we were waiting for Donald Trump to sign, the Attorney General can continue to withhold any Epstein files that are part of an ongoing investigation, which is a very normal thing, except it depends on who is applying that standard. And until recently, there were no ongoing investigations in this case. They closed them. But last week, Donald Trump, perhaps when he saw the writing on the wall here, he suddenly demanded that his attorney general open a new investigation into several Democrats with known ties to Jeffrey Epstein. And even though Pam Bondi had just confidently declared in that two-page memo that there was no one left to investigate, it took her just 217 minutes to be exact from when Trump made that public demand to announce that actually she would open a new investigation after all. And today Pam Bondi was asked about that very sudden reversal.
Madam Attorney General, the DOJ statement earlier this year saying that the files would not release mentioned the fact that the review of the documents and the evidence did not suggest that any additional investigation of third parties was warranted. What changed since then that you launched this investigation?
Information that has come for information. There's information that new information, additional information.
Information, new information, so much information. Did I mention the information? Again, now we know why Kash Patel looked under duress during that whole video. I think it's pretty clear. But again, the time that elapsed between Trump demanding this new investigation and Pam Bondi signing off on it was roughly the length of a Martin Scorsese movie, just to give you a sense. I mean, how much new information could she possibly have gathered in that period of time? Now, during that same press conference, Pam Bondi declined to rule out withholding more Epstein documents because of that investigation. So this is definitely a place to keep a very close eye on over the coming days. I will be for sure. But if Trump is once again relying on Pam Bondi and the Justice Department to save him from releasing these files, I don't think he should start getting his hopes up there. Because in the months since Pam Bondi first bungled the Epstein files release, her DOJ has not gotten any better at carrying out Trump's wishes. If anything, somehow they have gotten worse. I mean, take, for instance, the prosecution of Trump rival James Comey. There are few people Trump wanted to see prosecuted more than the former FBI director. And it was always going to be a challenge, given the flimsy allegations against him. But that hasn't stopped Pam Bondi's DOJ from completely screwing up their management of nearly every detail around this case. I mean, today in court, Lindsay Halligan, the Pam Bondi appointee in charge of that case, admitted to making a huge mistake that could possibly end up getting this case thrown out entirely. Halligan never actually presented the final indictment against Comey to the full grand jury. Only 2 grand jurors reviewed the final indictment. And Comey's legal team is arguing that means all the charges brought against James Comey could be invalid. Now, we're going to dig more into that a little bit later in the hour, the former top DOJ prosecutor. But this isn't exactly a one-off. I mean, that's the point. The prosecution of Trump's other foes isn't going much better either. In the mortgage fraud case against Trump's other foe, one of the other foes, I should say, New York Attorney General Letitia James, a new court filing this week revealed that senior fraud investigators in the Trump administration found no evidence that Tish James had actually committed any mortgage fraud. Which isn't surprising at all, considering Lindsay Halligan landed her job in large part because her predecessor was unwilling to move forward on the case against Comey and James due to insufficient evidence. This has never been about allowing great legal minds to guide prosecutions, obviously not. It's about finding a warm body willing to act on the retribution campaign against the people Trump perceives to be his enemies. That's what it's about. But Pam Bondi's DOJ is still managing to screw it up. So yeah, they are apparently willing to lie for him and do whatever they can to carry out his wishes, but they are not very good at it. And right now, they're kind of all Trump's got. Because frankly, he's running out of political allies at a faster pace than we have ever seen before. I mean, just yesterday, every single Republican in Congress, except one, Clay Higgins, I'm looking at you, voted against him on releasing the Epstein files. Marjorie Taylor Greene, once one of his closest allies in Congress, has now been publicly castigating him. She did yesterday, too. Over in the Senate, Trump ally John Thune is resisting Trump's demand to get rid of the filibuster. And Trump isn't just losing reliable buddies here in Washington. Let's go around the country, shall we? I mean, in Indiana, Republicans in the state legislature just rejected Trump's months-long lobbying campaign to try and redraw that state's congressional maps. In Texas, Republicans are trying to defend their gerrymandered maps by throwing Trump's Justice Department under the bus. So the attorneys for the Texas Attorney General even went so far as to call the DOJ's legal arguments, quote, legally unsound, baseless, erroneous, ham-fisted, and a mess. How do you really feel? I mean, everywhere you look, there are members of Trump's own party waking up and realizing that being a supplicant comes with a lot of headaches and very few perks. Even Trump's allies in the manosphere are turning on him.
This is the end of the Trump administration. This is the beginning of the lame duck presidency. It's obvious to everyone, even his most ardent supporters show up to the White House, like Laura Ingraham, and she's kind of shocked, going, what the hell's going on?
I heard there's no files. I heard it's a hoax. And then all of a sudden, he's going to release the files. Well, I thought there was no files.
Man.
He wants an investigation now.
Listen.
Like, what is going on?
They were making like deportation hype videos with trap beats and shit. And I was like, what are we doing? That's what I'm saying. Everything is turned into like the WWE.
I mean, those were some of his staunchest defenders. Some of them were. It doesn't take a political genius to figure out why Trump's allies are suddenly thinking twice about coming to his defense. A new Reuters Ipsos poll out today finds that voters disapprove of Trump's job performance by a 22-point margin. 22 points. That same poll finds voters disapprove of his handling of the economy by a 24-point margin. On immigration, the issue that is supposed to be his signature issue, voters disapprove of Trump by a 10-point margin. And on his handling of the Epstein files, voters disapprove by a whopping 39-point margin. Every day, Trump seems to get more and more unpopular, more politically isolated, and more reliant on the handful of sycophants he has left who are still willing to abuse their power on his behalf. So Donald Trump may be feeling kind of like a loner tonight. I mean, his political allies are deserting him, his poll numbers are tanking, and tonight he was forced to sign a bill to release the Epstein files, which I would note he did without a press pool there, it seems. He's in a corner tonight, weaker than he's ever been. And that raises some important questions. Like, what lengths could he go to try to get himself out of this mess? Because you know he's thinking about it. What will he try to get his incompetent stooges at the Justice Department to do now that his bill has been signed into law? And perhaps most importantly, well, how do Democrats plan to keep the pressure on here? What can they do?
What you just witnessed was more than a mere back and forth between a senator and an FBI director. It was a shocking exposure of the deep dysfunction within our most trusted institutions, the very agencies sworn to protect the American people. The director of the FBI, Christopher Wray, stood before the committee under oath, yet throughout his testimony, he couldn't hide the failures of his leadership, the corruption of his agency, and the systemic issues that continue to compromise the safety and security of every citizen. Let's break down exactly what happened here. The senator's questioning exposed a pattern of negligence in the FBI's operations. From white supremacy to their mishandling of high-profile cases like Epstein, Wray's responses did more to reveal the corruption than to defend the agency's integrity. The FBI was given a clear chance to take accountability, to confront its mistakes head-on. And yet what we got was a series of excuses and deflections. How can we trust an agency that is so deeply embroiled in failure? The first major issue that came up was the FBI's failure to acknowledge the real threats facing America. The director's inability to acknowledge the magnitude of right-wing extremism is both telling and deeply disturbing. In the same breath, he downplayed the rise of white supremacy in the country, a threat that has led to countless attacks, from the shooting deaths of innocent people to the violence at places of worship. The director was asked directly about the death threats faced by lawmakers, the constant barrage of hate speech, and the uptick in right-wing violence. Yet, what was his response? Silence. Even as members of Congress have been forced to fear for their lives, even as threats have become increasingly violent and personal, the director refused to take responsibility for the FBI's failure to respond adequately. This isn't just about a few extremist groups. This is about the mainstreaming of hate and violence. The question we must ask is, how many more lives have to be destroyed before the FBI takes this threat seriously? The director, clearly under pressure, tried to argue that the FBI had been effective in its operations, pointing to arrest statistics and pointing to progress that has been made. But how can we call it progress when the agency continually fails to address the root causes of these violent movements? But the real scandal doesn't stop there. As the testimony turned to the case of Jeffrey Epstein, the cracks in the FBI's credibility grew even wider. The director was forced to acknowledge that despite having full control over Epstein's Black Book, a document that could name countless powerful individuals involved in trafficking young women and children, the FBI has failed to release this vital information. The truth, it seems, is still being buried. What are they hiding? Why? After years of investigation, is Epstein's Black Book still being concealed from the public? The director, in a weak attempt at defending the FBI, cited court orders as the reason for withholding key evidence. But that's not the real issue here. The real issue is that the FBI has had the power to release this information for years, but has chosen not to. The director's responses are nothing more than obfuscation and stonewalling. Let's be clear, Epstein's crimes were horrific, but the FBI's handling of the case is equally criminal. The agency had an opportunity to dig deeper, to expose the full extent of Epstein's trafficking operation, yet it failed. It failed the victims. It failed the American people. And it continues to fail us now. The Black Book could provide the names of other powerful figures involved in Epstein's network. And yet, we still haven't seen it. Why is that? The reasons the FBI director gave for withholding Epstein's records don't add up. The fact that he referenced court orders as an excuse is laughable. The American public has a right to know the full scope of what happened. And it's not just about satisfying curiosity. It's about justice for the victims. Epstein's survivors have been left in the dark for too long. The fact that the FBI continues to play this game of release it little by little is an insult to the victims who deserve full transparency. The director's handling of the Epstein case isn't just a failure of leadership. It's part of a pattern of institutional corruption that is running rampant in our government. And it's not just the FBI. The entire system is built to protect the powerful, to protect those who are above the law, and to silence the victims. That is the hard truth we must confront. And let's not forget the FBI's internal issues. We heard about the agency's failure to keep its promises to Congress and the public. The director promised full transparency but has failed to follow through. We also heard about the FBI's complete inability to hire the right people and the director's own admission that it would take 14 years to fully staff the agency. 14 years. How can the American people trust an agency that can't even staff its own ranks, let alone protect us from real threats? What happens in the meantime? How many more violent extremists will have the time to grow in power while the FBI sits idly by? This is the reality of what's happening right now. The FBI has become part of the problem. The institution that was once tasked with defending justice and protecting Americans is now compromised, ineffective, and unaccountable. Director Wray's failure to act has exposed the FBI for what it truly is, an institution more concerned with protecting itself than with protecting the American people. Let's take a step back and look at the emotional toll all of this has taken on the American people. Who's being hurt here? It's the families of victims of white supremacy. It's the people who are living in fear because the FBI has failed to protect them. It's the survivors of Epstein's trafficking ring who are being kept in the dark. Their abusers still protected by an agency that refuses to act. The real victims here are not just statistics. They are real people whose lives have been destroyed because of the FBI's inaction. So what can we do? The only way forward is accountability. The American people deserve a full investigation into the FBI's failures, especially when it comes to the Epstein case. We need to demand that the truth comes out. We need to demand that the names in Epstein's Black Book are released. We need to demand that white supremacy be treated as the serious threat it is, and that the FBI prioritize protecting the public over political games. This is a battle for the soul of our democracy. And it's not just about holding the FBI accountable, it's about holding every institution accountable for its role in perpetuating corruption and injustice. What you just saw is only the beginning. We cannot allow these systems to continue unchecked. Share this video. Let your voice be heard. Subscribe to stay informed and to ensure that the fight for justice doesn't stop here. Together, we can demand accountability and make sure that the truth is revealed. This is not just a fight for today. It's a fight for the future. Remember, no one is above the law, not even the FBI. Stay loud, stay strong, and stay vigilant. Share this video with everyone you know.